All right, good morning. It is Wednesday, November 23rd. Good to see you this morning. Today's reading will be 2 Corinthians chapters 1 through 3. So 2 Corinthians was written, about the same time as 1 Corinthians, shortly after, obviously. As you saw and read, 1 Corinthians is a pretty blunt letter. There is some bluntness to 2 Corinthians, but it's blunt in the positive. So after writing 1 Corinthians, Paul traveled to Macedonia. There he met Titus, who was at Corinth, and Titus gave a report that the letter was well received. It seems from this one there's only a little bit of division that's still left. But it's interesting, even the man that's rebuked in 1 Corinthians chapter 6 for having his father's wife repented, and Paul saying, hey, let the guy back in. And so Paul's happy that his writings and teaching were well received, and seems to state as such in 2 Corinthians. Part of 2 Corinthians is written to establish and confirm Paul's office as apostle. Some in Corinthians had questioned this, and then so 1 Corinthians, the letter, would not carry as much authority. And so there's a little bit of defense here. Paul opens up in this book a little bit more about how he was beat, he's tired. He faced a rough several years there. All right, 2 Corinthians chapter 1 begins with a greeting and then moves on about talking about the God of all comfort. That's our God, the God we serve. And then finish explaining how there was a change of plans in coming to them. And then you see there in chapter 2, verse 1, how he changed his approach in 2 Corinthians. Sorrow, now comfort. And then you see here in verse 5 through 11, I believe talking about the same man that was being talked about there in 1 Corinthians chapter 6. See there in verse 17, some people were corrupting the word of God even then. And now chapter 3, Paul begins some of his defense of his apostleship. And then he talks about the blindness of Israel. Now notice, the only thing I really want to point out about that is that if they would turn their heart to Christ, any individual turns their heart to Christ, that veil is dropped for that person. On a national scale, we know that that's going to happen for many of them during the tribulation. All right, have a great day. We'll catch you tomorrow.